Honda has a new model, the
Yeah,
2025. Hunter Lawrence debuted it. I thought he did pretty good. I thought he did
I
pretty good. I mean,
yeah, I agree. I kinda like that strategy, like, for the ones that don't know, Honda has to bring in and get, I think it's about a two there's a homologation rule, and you have to have 220, I think, motorcycles in the
something like that.
States,
Yep.
in warehouses or on floors. I don't know what the actual technical details of that
It's
rule
close
is.
to that, like
Yeah.
200 or 300, something like that.
In
Yep.
the States or in warehouses, on the ground. So they were able to do that, and he was able to do
400,
that.
yeah, 400. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, ride the new 2025 that they've already been riding in Europe. Tim Geiser's on it, and a few others too. So, man, I thought the bike looked good. I mean, it's a little bit of a kind of a call it a gamble or risky, but if you're at Hunter's level, I know it's actually we have it here in our rundown. I did the same thing back in 2000,
Yeah,
think.
at Unadilla, right? That was your first race, right? Go
Yep,
for
yep.
it.
At Unadilla, I think it was 2012
Would you
model.
12. I think you told me it was 12.
Yep. So we did the same thing. Struggled. Could win a lot of first motos on the 2011 chassis and motorcycle, but just struggled in second motos. Did the exact same thing. Got enough bikes in the country on the ground, and was able to fly out from Florida like on a Tuesday to Glen Helen, ride it one day, and then fly back. In our position as a rider, when you are so tuned into these motorcycles,
Right.
literally when you pull a bike off the showroom floor, you can find out where, really what's going to be the problem or how much better is it right away.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
clearly they made the right decision, and they knew what they were up against, with enough time on that motorcycle to figure like, hey, let's go race this thing. It's that much better. I think it was a stability thing. It's kind of what I was hearing through the grapevine. The
Mhm.
bike's a lot more stable. And as we saw, Unadilla, very, very fast track this year. Like speeds were high, track was ruddy and rough, lots of lines, typical Unadilla. But going from some of our past tracks that we've had earlier in the season, like I think that was probably one of the fastest like speeds that we saw to date, of this pro motocross series.
Yeah, it was I thought he did well. Got a good start the first moto, and exactly like what you were saying, RV. You're so in tune with your motorcycle, like you've told us here on this podcast, from going from the 11 chassis to the 2012 chassis at Cowie. You're so in tune with what the bike does right, what it doesn't do right, and then when you hop on, even just like a production model of the upcoming year, you know where you need the bike to be better to go fast, and you liked it. That's why you pushed to race that thing at Unadilla, and your results spoke for just how well that bike eventually ended up being. And I think what we saw from Hunter this weekend was the same thing. Is it the magic answer? No. Do I think he did better? Of course he did. He did a lot better. I think it made it harder for Chase, especially that first moto, to try to beat him compared to what it's been all season long. And listen, dude, all these guys are looking for an RV. I think I'd be interested to know what you're looking for, dude. If you can find like a 10th here or a 10th here, just to make it a little bit more comfortable, that's all you need at this level, and it's hard to find. But going back to what you said, RV, I love that. Is like he must have hopped on it because Lars talked about it. He hopped on it, loved it immediately, and put in a ton of hours. And that was just a production model. And sometimes, as you know, when you put the factory parts on everything, there's a little bit more reinforcement. So it can stiffen it up, make it, you know, it affects the suspension or engine in certain ways just because of the bracing and the sturdier parts and pieces. But I think that it was great. I think that he did well. I think that the bike is going to continue to get better and better. I mean, it already is, so they'll tweak it, like you said. And I thought it was a step in the right direction. I don't think there's ever going to be any magical answers, but for sure, I think it was harder for Chase, and it challenged Chase a little bit more. I really do. I believe that.
Yeah, I think he was able to close that gap just a little bit, and I think the speed that he
Yeah.
wants to ride is a little bit easier to ride that speed that we saw. Hunter had the speed or has the speed, but maybe not every single weekend. And I think like a track like Unadilla can be very uncomfortable sometimes. You're kind of on a lean a lot of it, a lot of the track. It gets rough, it gets ruddy, long ruts too. So that motorcycle has to be stable. And I think we actually saw they did a good deep dive into it a few weeks ago where on the Honda bikes they were adding material. They kind of went through and they showed these
Ah.
pieces that they were
Mhm.
adding on
Mhm.
the bikes. And you can add material to the frame. That's part of that's okay to do from the rule
That's right.
standpoint, but you can't subtract. You can't take away material on these
Mhm.
on the motorcycles, but you can add. So they were. It looked to me like they were trying to stiffen up that the 2024. So I'm assuming all of the data that Europe has, all the data that Hunter and Jet send back over to Japan, that this motorcycle must be, a little stiffer in the areas where they want it to be, which in return makes a stable motorcycle and potentially too could make it even plusher, even a
Yeah.
softer feel.
I was gonna say that, like, sometimes, yeah, when you go reinforcing and putting braces on certain parts of the chassis where there's some bends in there and where there's some welding in there, it can actually give it, yes, a softer, more compliant feel as well. Yeah.
So very interesting. So I think it was a good move on Hunter's part. Not to mention all the data that they're going to get from Unadilla till the end of the season till Jet comes back. When Jet comes, he'll be able to jump right on that 25, and they'll already be strides ahead of where they would have been if they waited till the end of Call It Outdoors and then tried to do this for SMX. I think it's a great move to do this for outdoors and figure out the pitfalls that the motorcycle has. So when SMX rolls around for our 3 rounds, that they're already handling all of the maybe the little issues or fixes that they want to fix for more of the Supercross. Because it seems like and you can probably back this up too. RC is Supercross and motocross, obviously, as we know, completely different, and some of your issues that you see in outdoors you won't see in Supercross, and vice versa. The issues you see in Supercross you won't see in outdoors. So I really think they'll have a good grasp of what this motorcycle is capable of doing.
Yeah, I think I do. I agree with 100% what you're saying. I think that they got a great group there at Honda. Even I mean the Japanese engineers are fantastic, but just everyone in the Lawrence camp, everyone inside that semi that is there every single weekend, taking notes, taking data. Where do we need to be better? Just making it a balanced bike. I think it's probably a culmination of both. It's probably going to do things well in motocross, do things well and Supercross, which in SMX, as you know, is a hybrid track. It'll complement that style of racetrack as well. I'm excited for it. Like I'm excited for them. I think that it was obviously better initially. I think at our level or at their level now, RV, I don't think that you're going to ride this motorcycle if it wasn't initially better when he rode it the first time. I don't feel like you would have done it. I certainly wouldn't have done it. Like I'm not changing unless it's 100% better because you don't have time to make it better, right? It's like when you try something, if it's not better, then I'm going to run the same thing that I was running because I don't have time to make it better all the time in the season. So I think it's initially
Exactly.
better. I think it's less violent. I think from what I'm hearing, the window of making it right and the little tweaks to the suspension or what have you is a lot easier, and the window's a lot bigger to get it right. I think that again this weekend with how well Hunter did, and speaks volumes of the bike. I was doing a little drinking game because people like to talk and like, hey, we're gonna play a drinking game if this person says this many times. So I was playing, I was having fun while watching the race. About every time that new Honda was complimented, I was taking a sip of a beverage, and it was a lot of fun. I watched the race with my dad and my son on Peacock. It was good. It's
Yes,
good.
it was. And little story to that, and then we can move on to the Boxo breakdown. When I did fly out to California from Florida to test the 2012 bike, and this is no joke for the fans that are listening, and why I say
Come
this
on,
because
dude. Don't pull
I
our
know,
leg here,
I
bro.
know, right? Right? So I literally, we're so in tune with these motorcycles. I didn't even make it to the track before I turned around and rode back up to the truck and went to the engineers, suspension guys,
Yeah.
all the guys on Cowie and said, "I can feel a difference in this frame by riding through the parking lot on the rocks and the bumps and the little stuff that's in on the way to the track. I could feel a difference before even making it to the track." And they're like, "You're got to be kidding me." I was like, "I promise you, I can feel a difference." And
Dude.
that's how in tune, Ricky, like you were
Yeah.
very in tune with the motorcycle. We have so many laps and hours and hours and hours on these motorcycles. One little change, you can feel a difference right away. And there's other times you can't. There's other times you can't. I come back and tell my guys, I can't feel a difference. Let's go more in that direction to see if I can magnify what we're trying to change. But
Yeah.
um, I
Dude,
felt
that
soon as
is an
driving through the
awesome
parking lot.
yeah, that is an awesome wow. It's funny because, I'll go back to my early days at PC when I was riding for our buddy Mitch, and, like, on the two-stroke stuff, there were days where you're gonna try pipes, you're gonna try cylinders, heads, whatever it might be. Well, I remember one day that we were at this Supercross track, and we had, like, 3 pipes, right? And they're all cone pipes, like, they weren't stamped yet. And, for anyone who doesn't know how incredibly hard and how time consuming it is to make just like a test pipe. It's like it takes sometimes 20 to 40 hours to make one of these things, right? They're
Yep.
welding and measuring everything. And so we put this happens several times, but just a quick example is like that. They would put a pipe on and you go down the start straight and you're like brap, 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 like just trying to get it to go and like what's this thing feeling like, and instantly, most of the time, instantly like, ooh, this thing might be really good, or ooh, it's
Yep.
not. And there were times, RV, where I'm like, this thing, I felt bad for the dude that was building the pipe, because I'm like, I at least have to go ride a couple a couple laps to like humor this dude, and
Yeah.
rather than just go down the straight when I knew that it was a pile of crap.
Yeah.
And because I felt bad for him, like, dude, I hate to tell you, but this pipe isn't the one. After it just like, put in so many labor hours on it. So that's an awesome story that you said that. So you wrote it. Did it have factory stuff on it, or was it still production
Yes.
model?
No, so we had put the factory suspension and clamps and things like that. And where I was having a problem with the 2011 was just right above the foot pegs where the
Yeah.
main engine
Swing arm pivot. Swing arm
pivot,
pivot
all that
bolt.
goes through. Yeah, right there, we just had too much material, call it. It was just way
Yeah.
too rigid. And they had taken some of the webbing out or made it smaller, not taken it out. But on the
Yeah.
2012, there was less webbing there, less material, and literally I could feel it because it was coming up through my feet, up through my butt, up through my back. It was just wearing me out at the nationals, at the second
Yeah.
motos. And when I rode through the parking lot, I'm like, okay, this is a drastic difference. This is a big difference. So then once I did rode it through there, made it out onto the track and got to ride it, all the characteristics of the bike that I had that I liked were still there, if not maybe even a little bit better. But it was
Yeah.
it was so much more compliant on the track. And
Yeah.
then come around Unadilla, I went 1-1. So I think that
Wow.
was my first 1-1 of the year in
Oh, wow.
2011. Yeah, Dunge had pretty much got me most of the second motos. And points were very close because as you know, when you have
Yeah.
two guys like that don't rotate at a first and second very often, your points lead. It takes you a long time to build up those points. That's like
It
today
does.
when we see, when second and third always swapping, or guys not always being finishing 1 and 2. There's only a
Mhm.
3 point gap between first and second. Well, if you can get your competitor that you're racing against to get a fifth and a sixth or an eighth,
Mhm.
that's what we see today. And you see big point swings. Well, when I was racing, the diesel Dunge. He didn't
Yeah.
give me those big point swings. It was only 3 points per moto.
Dude, that's a good story. Because
So
I know it's probably hard for our listeners and watch and viewers to believe that, but straight up, I mean, RV put it in perfect detail for you guys. It's nuts how you can feel it. But as a racer, dude, I bet you were so pumped, and just the confidence alone you had leaving there, it was like game on going to Dilla.
I knew that I could get through second motos like I could get through the first ones, and it had nothing to do with the fitness thing. I was just getting beat to a pulp.
Yeah.
My fitness was good, and like we saw come out second moto Unadilla,
Mhm.
um, I was able to run it till the checkered flag without giving up anything, and that was the difference right there. So yeah, confidence went up dramatically going in. I knew that I had a real shot at winning, but also winning by a decent margin because I could keep my pace that I had in the first 5 laps till the checkered flag.
Hi, folks. Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.